I used to believe it was dramatic, that there was something broken in me, that my heart felt too much, talked too much, bled too much for small things. That's what the narcissist taught me, that my pain was exaggerated, that my crying was uncomfortable, that my sensitivity was the problem, and not the emptiness he left me every day. My name is Fernanda, and for a long time, I thought the problem was me. The narcissist never screamed. It never hit. He never had to raise his voice. It was enough to disappear. It was enough to remain silent. It was enough to look at me as if I was ridiculous for feeling, and I begged for crumbs of attention, as if this were love. The first time the narcissist told me I was too sensitive, we were in the kitchen. I had just come home from work, exhausted, and I tried to tell something silly that had hurt me that day. A comment in the office, a strange feeling in my chest. I just wanted to vent. The narcissist laughed, gave that half smile and said, "You are very sensitive, Fernanda. That wouldn't have messed with anyone." I froze. At the time, I felt ashamed for feeling, shame for having spoken. I kept silent, and I apologized for being too alive inside. He kissed me on the forehead, as if he were consoling me for being so weak, as if to say, "Poor you, who feels so much." After that, it was never just a sentence again. It was a sentence. "You are too sensitive." That's what the narcissist said whenever I tried to talk about something that hurt me. Whenever I pointed out something he did, or didn't do. The narcissist used this phrase as a gag, and I kept quiet. I kept quiet to survive. I started to ask myself, do I really exaggerate? Do I invent pain? The narcissist punished me with silence. For hours, for days, sometimes for whole weeks, without shouting, without explaining, without looking in my direction. It just faded away. He was emotionally absent, and I begged for presence. I lowered myself. I cried softly in the bathroom, because I knew that if he saw me crying, he would say I was making drama again. How many times have I heard that? The narcissist has no pity on anyone. You always make a storm out of a teacup. It's impossible to talk to you without you breaking down. You're unbalanced, Fernanda. And I started to believe. Gradually, I became convinced that my pain was ugly. That shouldn't bother. That it was better to swallow the sadness and smile. Because the narcissist was kind to everyone. In front of the others, he was charming, polite, charismatic, a true prince. But at home, he killed me in silence. There was a day when I made pasta, a simple dinner. I was happy, thinking we would have a light night. But the narcissist wanted sushi, and he didn't say anything. He just kept silent. She sat on the couch and stayed on her cell phone all night. When I tried to talk, he sighed deeply and said, "You're unbearable when you insist on things, you know? I just wanted to be quiet, and you turn it into a drama." 2 days without talking to me. 2 days inside the same apartment, crossing me in the hallway as if I didn't exist. 2 days in which I was silent too, but not out of pride, out of fear, by pain, by wear and tear. I walked as if I were walking on eggshells. I began to narrate myself in a low voice. Now I'm going to brush my teeth. Now I'm going to turn off the light. Now I'm going to pretend I'm not dying inside. The narcissist would tell me that I was oversensitive whenever I felt something he wanted me to ignore, and I started to doubt myself, from my memory of my reactions. I started to watch myself all the time, to proofread my sentences before speaking, to apologize before I even opened my mouth. How many times have I cried in front of him, waiting for a reaction, any sign of affection? And the narcissist only looked at me coldly, as if I were a child throwing a tantrum, as if my pain was theatrical, a staging that he had no patience to watch. There was a night when I said, "I feel lonely even though I'm with you." The narcissist replied, without hesitation, "Maybe you should seek help. I'm not responsible for your insecurities." That's where I broke. But he didn't notice. The narcissist said he loved me, but always with a but at the end. "I love you, but you need to get better. I love you, but your intensity is too much. I love you, but you complicate everything." It was never whole love. It was never love that welcomed. It was love that nullified. That made me cringe. That taught me to feel ashamed of who I am. The narcissist didn't have to hurt me with harsh words. He destroyed me with doubt. Am I really exaggerated? Am I inventing pain? Would no one else stand me? I wonder that to this day, even after he left, even after having read about narcissism, Even after knowing that all this has a name, it has a pattern, there is a cycle, but knowing is not the same as healing, because to this day, when I feel something strong, I hear the narcissist's voice in my head. "You're too sensitive, Fernanda." And I wonder, what if it's true? Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night with a tight chest and the feeling that I need to explain myself to someone, as if I should justify a tear, a sigh, a memory. The narcissist molded me like this, to believe that every feeling needs permission, that all pain needs to be calibrated so as not to bother you. There was a day when my grandmother was hospitalized. I called the narcissist in desperation, my voice trembling, trying to tell him, and he replied coldly, "It's not like she's going to die now, right? You always exaggerate things." I hung up the phone with a shaking hand and sat on the living room floor. I felt alone like a forgotten child in an empty station, as if my pain wasn't worthy of care, as if it were just another hysterical crisis of the overly sensitive Fernanda. It was in this kind of moment that the narcissist destroyed me, when I most needed a hug and received silence. A silence that screams, a silence that condemns, a silence that made me want to disappear. But the cruelest thing was when the narcissist reappeared as if nothing had happened. After hours, days, weeks of ignoring me, he would come back light, playful, as if he had gone out to buy bread. "Hi, love. Do you want to go out for a bite to eat?" And I, destroyed inside, smiled. Accept. And I tried not to remember the emptiness he had left me. The worst part was the cycle. The narcissist erased me, ignored me, blamed me, and then rewarded me with a little attention. I started to live through these moments, for these small returns, for those crumbs of affection that made me feel, for a second, that I was still lovable. That maybe I wasn't so exaggerated after all, that maybe I deserved to stay. But everything was control. Everything was calculation. The narcissist knew exactly when to disappear and when to return. He knew I was going to blame myself, that I was going to beg, that I would believe that I was the one who needed to improve. He hooked me in doubt, and I became a shadow. I slowly faded away. I stopped talking about my feelings before they even came. It canceled thoughts. He swallowed words. He lived on alert. I thought that to love someone was to adapt to them, even if it killed me. The narcissist would tell me, "You have to stop reacting to everything." And then, when I was silent, he would accuse me of being cold. "You don't show anything else." It looks like a stone. I couldn't feel it, nor stop feeling it. Everything about me was a mistake. Everything about me was too much or too little. It never fit. I started to be afraid of myself. I was afraid to cry, afraid to say, "It hurt me." Fear of telling a dream, fear of asking for affection, fear of bothering. And when you're afraid to exist next to the person who says they love you, you're no longer in a relationship. You're in an emotional captivity. There was a day when I collapsed in front of him. I couldn't pretend anymore. I sat on the kitchen floor, my face wet, saying, "I can't stand feeling like I'm wrong all the time." And the narcissist, with all the calmness in the world, just looked at me and said, "I've already said, you need therapy. This is not normal." That sentence broke me in a way that I could never paste again, because I knew I needed help, but not because he is too sensitive, not for inventing pain. I needed help, because I was being emotionally destroyed by someone who claimed to love me. I needed help, because the narcissist's silence was slowly killing me. But at that moment, I just cried. I cried like a homeless girl, like someone who has lost his ground, because deep down, what I wanted most was for him to listen to me, to say, "I see your pain," but he never said. The narcissist told me that I was too sensitive, but he never looked at what made me like this. He never took responsibility for anything. He turned my pain into an argument against me. He used my crying as proof that I was unstable. I pushed myself against my own emotions and said, "See, that's why no one understands you." Today, I try to relearn how to feel, to believe what I feel, trusting me. But I still hear his voice when I get emotional about something small. I still hear the echo of the narcissist when I feel afraid of bothering someone with my sadness. I still find myself apologizing for crying. I still find myself apologizing for being the Fernanda who feels too much. And sometimes, I ask myself, in the silence of the early morning, what if he's right? What if I'm really too sensitive? This thought is the wound that never closes. I wish I could say that it passed. That one day I woke up and simply knew that it was all abuse. That I left the narcissist behind, turned the page, and reconnected with who I was first and foremost. But the truth is that even far away, he still lives in the most fragile corners of my mind. It's as if his silence has lodged inside me. Sometimes I'm in a quiet environment, with people who love me, and yet I feel that weird tension in my shoulders. An automatic desire to observe faces, predict moods, measure my words with surgical precision, as if the narcissist was still there, ready to punish me with his contempt. After all, what hurts the most is not even what he said. That's what he didn't say. The conversations we never had, the apologies that never came, the truths he distorted until I myself began to doubt my sanity. So many times, I found myself reading and rereading old messages, trying to find some sentence in which he really validated me, trying to remember if he ever really listened to me, without disdain. And as much as I searched, I only found versions of myself trying to fit into him. I was no longer the spontaneous, light, noisy Fernanda. I became a woman in silence, just like the narcissist. Silence was all he used to dominate me. The silence when I said something that contradicted him. The silence when I cried. Silence after fights. The silence after sex. Silence as punishment, as a weapon, as a clear message that he ruled the atmosphere of the house, that he decided when I deserved to be looked at, touched, heard, and I got used to it. I got used to contempt. I got used to waiting, measuring every step, questioning whether she was wrong all along. Because the narcissist never apologized. I never assumed anything. He just turned his face and let the air between us weigh like lead. There came a point when I started to feel sick. Not physically, but emotionally shrunken. Like I'm an empty shell walking around the house. I didn't laugh out louder. She no longer cried in front of him. He didn't dream of anything anymore. It was as if everything that existed in me had been drowned out by the echo of that phrase. You're too sensitive. Sometimes the narcissist would even say this with affection, as if it were a joke between us. Oh, Fernanda, you and that little heart there, right? Everything affects you. And I smiled. I smiled because if I didn't smile, he punished me coldly. Once I asked him if he still loved me. He said, "You need to stop seeking confirmation all the time. This is your insecurity." It has nothing to do with me, but it had everything to do with him. It had to do with the way the narcissist would silently dismantle me, then say that I was broken. It had to do with how he disappeared emotionally when I needed him most. How weak it made me feel for wanting to be heard. How I used my own heart against me. The narcissist never called me crazy, but it made me feel like it was. As if feeling too much was a disease. As if crying was a deviation. As if wanting presence, affection, conversation were a sign of instability. He turned me into doubt. To this day, when something hurts me, my first reaction is to think, am I overreacting? To this day, when someone is silent, I freeze inside. I expect punishment. I wait for the silence to turn to ice. The narcissist taught me that love has a time, a rule, a distance, and I unlearned what real love was. I remember one morning when I woke up and the narcissist was having coffee. I approached, still heartbroken from the night before, and tried to start a conversation. He didn't look up. I just said, "Are you going to start again, Fernanda?" And that was enough for me to spend the whole day in silence, stifling everything I wanted to say, hiding everything I needed. Because with the narcissist, being seen as needy was worse than being invisible. I've gotten used to begging for normalcy, by a simple gesture, a smile, "I'm here." But with him, everything came with demand. Everything had to be deserved. And how does someone deserve to be loved? Today, I'm still relearning that. I still tremble when I need to say what I feel. I still apologize before sharing a pain. I'm still afraid of being too much. Fear of being too sensitive. The narcissist is no longer here, but he left a shadow on me, a part of me that still questions itself, who is still trying to understand if what I experienced was love or punishment. And the saddest thing of all is that I still miss him sometimes. Not from him exactly, but of the hope that he would see me one day, listen to me, accept me as I am. But the narcissist never really wanted Fernanda. He wanted control of it. And now, all the silence around me still carries the ghost of his. I wanted to be able to say that I freed myself. That one day I understood everything at once. That the ground opened, that the penny dropped, and that I finally left with strength, with anger, with dignity. But it was not so. I was leaving myself little by little. Before I left that house, I had already left myself. The narcissist took it all away in silence. It took away my joy, my voice, my intuition, and I didn't even notice when I stopped recognizing Fernanda, who was looking at me in the mirror. She always seemed exhausted, always apologizing with his eyes, always trying to get ahead of the next ice. The most confusing thing was realizing that he also had moments of affection. It wasn't just contempt. That's what hooks us the most, right? Because the narcissist knew exactly when to give me affection. He would show up with a hug when I was about to break down. He called me beautiful right when I had already decided to leave. He said he loved me quietly after ignoring me for 2 days. And I believed it. Because I wanted to believe. I wish it was all a misunderstanding. I really wanted the problem to be my sensitivity. I wanted him to be right. Because if he was right, maybe I still had a fix. I felt like a child who does everything not to lose the little love he receives. I tried so hard. So much internal surveillance. So much trying to speak with the right tone, at the right time, with the right body. I disappeared from myself to fit into what the narcissist needed me to be. Silent, grateful, and emotionally erased. There was a day when we went to a party. I smiled, I was friendly, I got ready. Inside, she was devastated. On the way home, I made some light comment about a person we met, and the narcissist changed his expression. It became serious. Told, "You should talk less. You expose yourself too much." And then he was silent. For 3 days. 3 days without saying a word to me. 3 days inside the same house, hearing his footsteps in the hallway as if they were thunder. 3 days asking for forgiveness for a phrase that he never explained why he bothered him. At that time, the narcissist punished me so much with silence that I started to want fights. Screaming, any reaction, anything that would break that glacial coldness. I wished he would explode, to accuse me, to yell at me. At least then I would know he felt something. But the narcissist didn't explode. It evaporated, and it left me alone with the rubble of what I felt. I remember one night when I went down the stairs of our house, with my face red from holding back my tears. I walked up to him, sat down next to him, and asked with all the calmness I had left, "Why do you walk away from me like that?" The narcissist just laughed. He laughed as if my pain was a funny exaggeration. "My God, Fernanda, you really need help. You're getting paranoid." Paranoid. That was the word that kept spinning in my head for days. What if I really was? What if the narcissist was right? What if I was the emotionally unstable woman he said? I started researching secretly about disorders. I wondered if I was borderline, anxious, depressed. I went to therapy believing that it needed to be fixed to deserve love. The psychologist listened to me for 2 sessions before asking the question that changed everything. "Fernanda, why are you blaming yourself so much for feeling?" I cried for almost 10 minutes. I couldn't answer, because no one has ever asked me that. No one ever allowed me to feel without judgment. The penny was slowly dropping. It was not a flash. It was a whisper. I began to understand that the problem was not my sensitivity. It was that the narcissist used my sensitivity against me. I manipulated myself from the inside. He made me crazy so he didn't have to take responsibility. And silence was the perfect tool. Nothing is more violent than the absence of response. Because when someone screams, there is still a voice. But the narcissist's silence was a condemnation. It was a verdict. It was him saying, "You don't even deserve to be heard." Today, even far away, I still have reflections of that. When someone takes a long time to answer a message, my chest tightens. When someone says they need a break, I cringe inside. When someone criticizes something in me lightly, I listen with the weight of a judgment. It's as if the narcissist is still whispering behind my back. Too sensitive. Always too sensitive. And I try every day to tell myself that feeling is not a failure, that feeling is not ugly, that I'm not weak, exaggerated, unstable. But sometimes, in the darkest back of my mind, this thought still escapes me. What if he is right? What if no one ever loves me whole? What if, am I really too sensitive for this world? That thought tears me apart in silence, the same way the narcissist has always done. Sometimes I think that what the narcissist destroyed was not only my self-love, it was my confidence in reality. He touched the most subtle things, He rewrote conversations, distorted memories, turned complaints into attacks, and feelings into weaknesses. He used my words against me, always calmly, always superiorly, and it always made me believe that I was the problem. I'd say, "You left me alone that night," and the narcissist replied, "You who isolate yourself when you don't have what you want." I would say, "I cried, and you didn't do anything," and he said, "You think everything revolves around your drama." I'd say, "I just wanted to be heard," and he, "You don't want to be heard, Fernanda. You want to control how I feel." It was like that, always like this, a maze of mirrors, and each mirror distorted my image a little more, until I didn't know who I was anymore. I just knew I was wrong, always wrong. The narcissist made me apologize even for what I didn't understand. Sorry if I was too much. I'm sorry if I spoke loudly. I'm sorry if I insisted. I'm sorry if I made you tired. Sorry for feeling so much. Sorry, sorry, sorry. A woman who is always apologizing for existing no longer knows where the other ends and begins, and he liked that. I liked to see myself confused, insecure, small, because a woman in doubt is easier to control. A woman without a mirror is easier to shape, and the narcissist knew exactly where to move to dismantle me without raising his voice. There was a Sunday when we went to visit his parents. I was anxious, tense, trying to look perfect. I smiled. I was polite. I served coffee. When we returned home, he was silent. I asked if everything was okay. He replied dryly, "You talk too much. I didn't need to tell you about my work. It was ridiculous." I froze. Ridiculous. Me, just trying to be nice, trying to please, trying to lighten the mood, and he called me ridiculous. But the worst part came later. The narcissist kept quiet. He went 2 days without saying a word. Not even a good day. Not a glance. Nothing. And I, once again, begging with my eyes, with short messages, with shy gestures, with silences that screamed, "Forgive me, even if I don't know why." It was on that kind of day that I lost parts of myself the most. In the days when I transformed myself into a woman who kneels emotionally, who does everything not to be rejected, who accepts being punished for existing. I no longer knew if what I felt was fair, if my feelings were based, or if they were just daydreams. The narcissist did this. He took me away from my own compass. I started to depend on his opinion even to feel. If I was sad, I looked at him for permission. If I was happy, I expected him to approve. If I felt fear, shame, doubt, I kept quiet because I knew the narcissist was going to use it against me. I didn't trust myself anymore, and this was the most profound violence, make me doubt my own reality. To this day, when something moves me, I hear his voice in my head. "Fernanda, stop exaggerating. That's not all that." And I cringe. I correct myself. I take the feeling in my arms and try to hide it from others, like a frightened child, because the narcissist still lives in me. Not physically, not with presence, but with the echo, with the words he planted like sharp knives, with the silences he used as a chain. And sometimes, I catch myself doing what he did, punishing me, keeping quiet, criticizing me, like I took on his role after he left. I became my own jailer, repeating the phrases he said until I believed it. "You're too sensitive. You need help. You don't know how to deal with real life. You distort everything. You're hard to love." These phrases don't come out of me. They echo. They come back when I'm alone, when I have an intense emotion, when I get attached fast, when I cry for something small. And every time I feel, I also feel the guilt for feeling. The narcissist didn't leave me with bruises. He left me with ghosts. And perhaps the cruelest of all is this. I still try to prove to him, inside my mind, that I'm not weak, that I'm not crazy, that my sensitivity is my gift, not my condemnation. But deep down, even trying, I still wonder, will anyone love me exactly as I am? Will anyone put up with what the narcissist called too sensitive? Or will I spend the rest of my life apologizing for feeling? There are days when I almost forget, days when I wake up and feel a strange calm, as if the weight has disappeared, as if I could just be Fernanda without fear, without tension, without that expectation that something will hurt me right after I smile. And then, in the middle of the day, something happens. Someone raises their tone, someone walks away, someone makes a cross comment, and my body reacts before my mind even understands it. Everything comes back, the heart racing, Fear, the need to fix what may not even be broken. The feeling that I did something wrong just for existing with intensity. Because the narcissist trained me for that. To blame me. To always try to please. To chase even when I don't know what. I remember a conversation we had in the car on any given day. I was crying softly, trying to explain how alone I felt right next to him. And the narcissist, looking ahead, said with that coldness that chilled me inside, "Fernanda, you have too many problems. No one will ever be able to satisfy you." And at that moment, a part of me died. Because it wasn't just about him. It was about no one. No one will stand you. No one will love you. No one will stay. And I believed it. This was the most effective poison the narcissist gave me. The belief that my heart, so full, so noisy, so present, was a factory defect. Since then, I enter any relationship with fear of being discovered, as if my sensitivity was something shameful, as if, at some point, the person was going to look at me like the narcissist did, with contempt, with exhaustion, with that air of, here she comes again with this. It's like I'm always apologizing for feeling. But sometimes, in the middle of all this, there is a snap, a flash of lucidity, an instant when his voice falls silent and mine begins to whisper again. It's not wrong to feel sorry, Fernanda. It's not bad to want to be heard. It is not weakness to cry for something that touches you. That doesn't make you smaller. It makes you human. And then I remember that this is exactly what the narcissist couldn't stand. My humanity. He needed to see me small, because he was unable to feel deeply, and so I needed to be made to believe that my depth was a flaw. The narcissist never really loved me. He loved control. He loved the image of himself as a patient who could put up with a difficult woman. He liked to put himself as a victim of my feelings, like he was too strong to affect, and I was too weak to contain myself. And the cruelest thing is that, in the end, he came out clean. People saw him as calm, rational, kind, while I seemed too emotional, too needy, exaggerated. No one ever saw what he did in silence. No one ever heard what he said with their eyes. No one ever felt the cold he left after each conversation. But I felt it, and that pain still lives here, sometimes disguised as doubt, sometimes of guilt. Sometimes I miss him. Not him, but the Fernanda I was before he convinced me that loving too much was a failure. Today I carry this invisible scar, that mark that no one sees, but I feel it. I feel when I hesitate before opening my heart. I feel when I think 1,000 times before sending a heartfelt message. I feel it when I ask myself, even though I love someone new, am I suffocating? Am I feeling too much again? That voice is not mine. It is the voice of the narcissist, the one he planted inside me, and that still whispers when I try to free myself. But I'm not her, no more. And even though I still wonder, in the dark days, if he was right, if I'm really too sensitive, there is something new being born within me. A shy scream, a beginning of fury, a small, almost imperceptible certainty. Being too sensitive has never been my fault. It has always been my strength, but the narcissist has never been able to deal with it. Then he tried to destroy me inside, and for a long time, he succeeded. But now, I'm here, wounded, yes, full of doubts, yes, but for the first time, with the courage to say, I'm Fernanda, I'm sorry, and that doesn't diminish me, it rebuilds me. Even though his voice still echoes in me, it's mine that's going to stay. Sometimes I stop in the middle of a random afternoon, washing dishes, folding laundry, looking out the window, and feel that familiar emptiness, a space inside me where the narcissist used to live. A silence that seems to scream my name. It's not missing him. I miss myself, of the whole of Fernanda, before being taught to distrust her own emotions. Because that's what he did, day in and day out. He taught me to doubt myself, to be afraid to feel, to believe that my intensity was such a serious defect that no one else in the world could bear it. The narcissist never had to raise his voice to destroy me. He only needed cold sentences and calculated absences, of blank stares, of emotional disappearances, of a presence that came and went as punishment. And every time I reacted, every time I begged for love, he would say with that poisoned calm, Fernanda, you are too sensitive. You exaggerate. The pain it caused couldn't be explained, because in the eyes of others he was polite, a mature man, controlled. And I I always seemed on the verge of a crisis, always asking for attention, always hurt by small things. But what people didn't see was the accumulation. His silence weighed like a stone upon a stone, a contempt disguised as patience, an indifference disguised as rationality. No one saw the days he went by without speaking to me, just because I had a reaction that he didn't approve of. No one saw the nights when I slept with my eyes open, waiting for him to turn on his side and pull me close. And he didn't. No one saw the way the narcissist treated me as too fragile to deserve consideration, but strong enough to endure everything in silence. And I could handle it. I endured too much. Until one day my body started to break down. I had anxiety attacks that I hid from him. She was ashamed to tell it, because she knew exactly what the narcissist was going to say. You need to treat yourself. This is not normal. As if I had been born spoiled. As if it was my fault to always be hurt. And I started to believe that. I began to think that maybe he was doing me a favor by staying by my side. That perhaps no one else in the world would have the patience he claimed to have. That maybe I was really unbearable. Too intense. Emotionally defective. This is the perversity of emotional abuse. It enters you through the crack of doubt and corrodes everything you believed it to be. For a long time, I thought I was going crazy. That the narcissist was a good man, and that I was the woman who ruined everything. I spent sleepless nights rereading conversations, trying to find where I had overreacted, where I had forced, where I had felt too much, and I never did, because there was nothing wrong with me other than the pain he caused me, and that he refused to see. The narcissist liked to see me destabilized, because the more confused I got, the more power he had, and I, desperately wanting to keep his love, molded myself, pruned myself, silenced myself. But one day, after another crisis of silence, another denial of my feelings, another contempt disguised as calm, I looked at myself in the mirror and said out loud, "There's nothing wrong with feeling." It was the first time I defended my sensibility as something worthy. It wasn't easy. The narcissist's voice screamed in my head, "You're exaggerated. You are needy. You're unstable." But that day, something inside me rose. Maybe it was just a whisper. Maybe it was the last bit of me that still remembered who I was before I cringed. And it was with this little piece that I started to rebuild Fernanda for real. The one who feels deeply, who loves without fear, who cries when she needs to, who speaks when something hurts, who wants to be heard, not out of need, but out of dignity. Today, I still find myself doubting. I still hesitate before opening up. I still wonder if I'm weighing too much, if I'm asking too much. Because the damage that the narcissist left does not disappear with a snap. It is a slow process. Sore. Lonely. But every time this doubt comes, I take a deep breath and repeat to myself, you have the right to feel. You have a right to exist completely. And if anyone can't stand it, if someone needs to diminish you to feel in control, so this person never really loved you. The narcissist told me that I was too sensitive. But he used my sensitivity as a shield, not to face his own coldness. He didn't want to deal with my pain, because he would have to take his part in it. Today, I still carry marks. I still wake up with fear. I still feel the echo of that silence surrounding me. But I also carry something he never managed to kill. The desire to find myself again, to honor me, to rebuild myself, even if it's alone. And maybe one day, when I look in the mirror guiltless, undoubtedly without fear, I can say in a firm voice, being too sensitive has never been my weakness. It has always been my truth, and I just want someone who sees it, without trying to shut me up.